afternoon, folks, and welcome to episode 229 of the Sticks in the Six podcast. As always, I'm your host, Andrew Forbes, here with my co-host, Peter Barracchini. And I know you guys have seen me twice this week, probably getting sick of seeing this mug already this week. But we did have a special episode this past weekend, Monday, bringing Emma Malte from the Canadian national team and Toronto Scepters on, which was, as you saw, obviously you couldn't be there, but as you saw, it was a fantastic conversation about the promotion of women's hockey, the development of young female athletes, and continue to push that barrier, right? That barrier that we've seen for so long, and developing the PWHL, and it was. Ultimately, it was a fantastic time talking with Emma Malte, and shout out to her for coming on as well.
Absolutely.
But this episode is going to be kind of a shorter one. We're not going to dive too much into the results that we've seen over the last couple of games. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the potential of the Leafs maybe getting into the draft lottery's top 5, given that they've got a top 5 protected pick. But, of course, we're going to talk about the disaster that was the NHL trade deadline for the Leafs. But before we get into all of that, Peter, how you doing this week, buddy?
Doing great, man. Yeah, and really, really bummed that I couldn't be a part of that Emma Malte interview, but you did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed the content that you both provided. Her responses were very, very well done. Your questions were bang on, basically the same ones I would have asked regardless, too. So, yeah, it was a really great combo. If the viewers haven't watched it, I suggest going to watch it right away because it was a really good conversation between Andrew and Emma, and hopefully we could get her on in the future again. Get her on at some point. But yeah, it's going really good, man. Like you mentioned, still reeling from the trade deadline. I think everyone else still pretty much is, and a lot of people are left with more questions than answers at this point in terms of the direction the Maple Leafs are going right now. Mm-hmm. And I know we're going to break down the trades, and I think it kind of left us with a lot of hope after the Nick Waugh trade, and then it just fell flat from there. And I think a lot of people are pissed off about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We mentioned it that coming away without a solid first in this year's draft would be disappointing. I think I said it. I went as far as saying it'd be a failure. So we will certainly get into that in just a moment here. This is a good time to remind you as well. We've got Jordan in the comments already. Jordan's one of our viewers from TikTok Live who's jumped over to the YouTube channel as well. So
what's up, Jordan?
Do what Jordan does. If you're viewing right now on TikTok, make sure you jump over to the YouTube Live. Get involved in the conversation. Either way, make sure you're hammering that like button. Make sure you're hammering that subscribe or follow button as well so we can continue to produce fantastic content. It's also a good time to remind you that we are brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network, a fantastic podcast network full of great shows, and they are brought to you by the folks over at DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. Currently, right now, the favorite to win the cup, if you're going futures, is the Colorado Avalanche at plus 260. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager, tax, pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer, copyright 2026 NHL. All rights are reserved. Well, as we mentioned here, this is all about the trade deadline. The Leafs made 3 moves, 2 that squeaked in right at the tail end of the deadline. Obviously, the Scott Laughton and the Bobby McMann deal. We knew these were the names on the block. Excuse me. We knew these were the names on the block. They were sat out for roster management reasons, which has become a customary move for the NHL teams as they approach the deadline. And one name that wasn't moved, and I'm glad Jordan brought it up here in the comments as well.
Yeah.
He says, I'm shocked they didn't move OEL. Um, now, we discussed this on a couple episodes back. We said the asking price for OEL has to be a first round pick. Given where he is in defensive points, given the term on his contract, given the price that was paid for other defensemen heading into this deadline, it makes sense that they didn't move him. He was very open about his interest in staying in Toronto, his wanting to play for the Maple Leafs, obviously building his family there. So that was important for OEL as well. He talked to Mark Masters after the deadline as well. It talked about the impact it had with staying there, knowing his name had been thrown around, having sat out a few games heading into the deadline, what it does to a psyche as well. So in that sense, I'm not shocked.
Mm-hmm.
What I am shocked about is that there wasn't a team out there that was willing to pay a first round pick for OEL, given that right now the Western Conference seems to be the favorite. I mean, if you go the top three teams looking at futures for the Stanley Cup, mostly Western Conference teams outside of maybe Tampa Bay. But the Eastern Conference didn't do a whole lot on this trade deadline. And that's maybe the more shocking thing about the OEL situation, that nobody was willing to offer that. And we talked about the return on some of the defensemen early in this trade deadline heading in. We talked about what OEL has done for the Maple Leafs this season, given that they are, quite frankly, an abysmal team. And the fact that there was not an offer, is that something that kind of shocks you a little bit as well, Peter, knowing that what he's given this season?
Yeah, definitely kind of shocked me a little bit too. I mean, my main thing is he was your most valuable asset heading in, and that to me screams first round pick. And now the only problem is with that is not a whole lot of teams had a first round pick, especially if it was like being a little bit more competitive out west, because a lot of those teams did move it. Having said that, even when I wrote my piece about him being a very integral trade asset, it would suck to lose him because he's been so good and a little bit more consistent than any other defender on this team this season. So, am I upset that he didn't get moved? A little bit, but not as much because of how good he has been, and it would be a big shoe to fill if he was gone, if he did move. Having said that, I'm not moving him if there was no first round pick on the table. Absolutely not, because of the fact that, yeah, I know he's a left-hand shot, but he can play on his right side. He does have a Stanley Cup to his name. He does have a lot of upside as a puck-moving defender. To me, that's a first-round pick right then and there. I'm not budging from that, and if anybody can say otherwise, well then, look at Rasmus Anderson and look what he's doing with the Vegas Golden Knights right now. He's doing absolutely nothing. And the Calgary Flames are able to get that in return for him. OEL is probably a little bit more consistent and has a little bit more of a defensive game to him, which probably would have improved his value a little bit more. Plus the contract too, 2 more years, 3.5. I'm not budging if I'm getting a first or even a possible top to mid-tier pick for OEL. Now, because they didn't get that, that just moves a year away from him of his value probably being as high as it is right now. Do I think you can still probably get a first for him next year, even when he's going to be a year older? I do think that. I think it's still possible, especially if he's going to be at the same level, but then you risk getting to the what if side of things, where if he doesn't get to that point, his value diminishes, and then a team's going to be like, oh yeah, we'll give you a second and a fourth or a second and a third for OEL. Great, but you could have at least had a first round pick as a result of that the previous year. So do I understand not moving on for him? Yes. Am I disappointed that he isn't there because his value is still at a premium? Yes, because it could go down later next year, but I understand why.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Rasmus Anderson, great point. 1 goal, 6 points in 16 games with the Vegas Golden Knights. after 30 points in 48 games with Calgary this season, a -6 as well after being a +3. So take that for what you will. In saying that, there was a lot of conversation of what the Leafs are going to do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously the rumors were flying. We all saw the Austin Matthews rumors to LA. I've been all over TikTok recently trying to defend the fact that there is leadership in that in what the Leafs have in Matthews. A lot of people saying no leadership, no heart, but I think it's been a tough year for the organization as a whole. Obviously, now rumors swirling that Nylander wants out because of his comments after yet another loss, saying it's difficult to play when things aren't going this way. So I mean, the rumor mill is swirling around this team. That said, we knew going in that the conversation was that it was going to be a retooling, not a complete rebuild. The rebuild, you'd see guys like Tavares, you'd see guys like Morgan Riley, you'd see guys like Austin Matthews and Nylander and everybody basically finding their way out the door, right? Knowing that it was a retooling, I think that's what made it so much more important to keep a guy like Oliver Ekman-Larsson, because what he's added to this team, we talked about it a couple episodes ago that this is a guy who's not a 4-5 like he was in, say, Florida, right? He has played at the level of a 2-3 in your top six defense in terms of defense. He's added a flair. He's had more fight than most guys on this team in recent months, and he's able to go out there and add some production offensively as well. And I think that's what makes him such an important piece to this team. So for the Leafs to go out there and stupidly make a trade for, let's say, a second and a third for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, it doesn't make sense to the organization, right? What the Leafs need is some first round talent. If you're not going to get it for a guy who's already producing and has term at a relatively great price, then it doesn't make sense to move a guy like Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So in saying that, I mean, I think it makes sense that he didn't get moved. I like I said to you, Jordan, I'm not entirely shocked. I'm shocked that nobody offered that first round pick, given the way that the market was. Now, in saying that, we're going to get into this conversation a little bit with the cost of what the return was for guys like Bobby McMahon and Scott Lawton. One of the conversations around this year's NHL trade deadline was that the market was set very high, very early. The Michael McCarron, right? The moves like that, the Rasmus Kiefer Sherwood. The market was set early. And I think that affected how teams were going to approach the deadline. Teams were going to offer other teams for their players that they wanted, and that's why we saw the returns we did. Now, let's get into the Nick Waugh move, because he obviously went to Colorado. They at the time thought they weren't going to get Nazem Kadri, which they ended up getting late on deadline day. But the Leafs got a conditional first round pick back in 2027. Obviously top 10 protected, but a conditional first round pick, which I think seemed high for people given what Nick Waugh added to the Maple Leafs over the last year, right? Now that's not to say that he can't offer more. We've seen him with a goal already with Colorado, a fight with Colorado. He's already added more pizzazz to that lineup than he did with the Leafs. And we can talk about mismanagement by Craig Berube all we want, because that seems to be the underlying conversation here with all three players that went out this year. But Nick Waugh, to get the return that he did, your immediate reaction when you saw that trade?
When I first saw it, I'm like, okay, it was kind of weird because he wasn't one of the players that sat out the night before. So I kind of felt that, okay, it's still something in the works. There were rumblings of him, possibly going out west to Edmonton because they've been in the market for a forward. And when I saw the notification, I'm just like, oh, okay. Waugh's gone. He was one of the guys on the move. Now the sell-off is starting to begin. What is he going for? When I saw the price of a first-round pick, I was a little bit shocked because of the fact that third line center. Again, he does have one more year on his contract. He does have some term at $3 million. So you know what? The fact that he had some like that one more year, I think it was well worth the first round pick. And this is a guy that's won a Stanley Cup. He was at least a consistent 30-point getter for Vegas when he was around there. And I thought that was a good value, but I wasn't expecting it that high. And I can understand why it's top 10 protected, but I can't see Colorado getting into that top 10 at all. It's probably going to be a late first round pick at that point. And I can't believe that maybe the Maple Leafs should have followed suit with their first round pick this year. Should have been top 10 protected, but I digress. We will get to that later. I do think that it was still a little bit high. Again, there was also a conditional 5th round pick, but I think getting a first for Nick Waugh really set the standard high for Treliving. We're like, okay, you got some picks in return. You wanted to restock the cupboard. You wanted to get some assets back. This was a good stepping point. Until the day that followed after, I was really surprised that they were able to snag a first for him, but it's a win for us right then and there because it is a first round pick. And if things go south next year where the 2027 pick to Philly is top 10 protected, and let's say the Maple Leafs are still bad and they are in that top 10 right there, you have an early first and a late second should things get to worst case scenario next year.
Yeah, no, and I think it set the early expectation quite high for the Leafs, right? Like, and Leafs Nation, we see this conditional first come over, and I agree. You know, I think right now with the Leafs, with the way they are, any first round pick they send out, they got to put a top 10 condition on it, especially because you don't know how the season's going to go. Now,
yeah, never mind top 5. Top 10 is the safest bet.
Yeah, one comment I will make is that Matthews came out and made the comment that Tampa was terrible for a year, missed the playoffs. They came back and they've been great ever since. Boston was terrible last year and they've come back and they've had a season. So
fair.
Could this potentially be a one-off with the shakeup that happened last season? Could have sent a ripple effect through the room. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Like, we could be talking a different story next season. Who knows, right? We could be talking about another top 10 pick potentially next season. Who knows? It's tough to say, but I do believe that a conditional pick based on it being a top 10 protected needs to be something that the Leafs look at moving forward. That said, the fact that they got a first round pick for Nick Waugh was super important. We've talked about their draft capital over the next few seasons. We talked about what Dubas trade away. We talked about what Treliving's trade away. We talked about asset management in terms of what they've given up and what they've gotten in return. And frankly, like, it hasn't been great asset management through the last, I want to say, decade and a half. But in saying that, what they did was they traded away a few players and they've given some younger players an opportunity to come up and play. So Nick Waugh trade, completely understand. You're trying to trade him away for some more pieces to make this Marner trade tree eventually look half decent for your organization, right? And right now, I mean, based on what you get in the first round next year, it could potentially be a better trade for Mitch Marner when you look back on it in 5, 6, 7 years when we all go for the Steve Dangle trade tree, hockey piece, right? But then the Bobby McMann trade came across the wire. Mm-hmm. And I was conflicted on this one because there was a part of me that said you need to get rid of him now. You need to move him. Yeah. He's never going to be at a higher price. And at the time, given what we got for Nick Waugh, there was an expectation that a first-round pick was coming back. That was not the case. Obviously, Bobby McMann, he gets shipped out. We get a couple picks in return. And we're now talking about a guy who's, let's be frank, a 20-goal scorer, has incredible speed, and wanted to play in Toronto, given what that organization has done for him and the development that they've the development pathway that they've given for him. Bobby McMann leaves the Maple Leafs, opens the door for younger players. But what's your take on seeing a guy like that who has been very good at times for the Leafs, but he has also been mediocre at times for the Leafs over his tenure.
Yeah, I do think that you had to move on from him, and especially if that contract was going to be in the Kiefer Sherwood range that we broke during the episode that we had with Kyle. I understand the salary cap is going up, but for a 30-year-old player that just popped off right now, this late into his career, I know he was a late bloomer, but given like close or in between 5.5, $6 million for a player like that at this age, it never usually it goes well. I do think that they kind of dodged the bullet with the contract. And yeah, it does suck because he does have a lot of speed. He does have a lot of upside. You know, this is a power forward that could go into the corners. This is a guy that has a decent shot. He was putting up he was just under 20 goals. He was going to hit another 20-goal season already this season. So yeah, I think it sucks that you didn't want to get the contract. You didn't want to get anything done. And yeah, it was a crazy deadline day because about like 2-3 hours before the deadline, there were rumblings that he could go to Colorado. So, you know, Toronto with that connection already, trading Nicholas Waugh, getting a forward there. You could get a second. There's a prospect coming in return. I'm a big Gavin Brindley fan. I was hoping that he would be in that return. Obviously, he went to Seattle. And to me, I think this is where Tree kind of panicked and tried to get what he think was the best move possible instead of fighting for what he thought was fair value based on what happened with earlier in the day where Nick Dow was going for a second round pick. Corey Perry went for a second. And you still managed to get a second round pick and a fourth, but you're forgetting this is the whole comparable this whole entire time was Kiefer Sherwood. Contract wise, player wise, production wise, value wise as a trade target. I'm kind of surprised that the Maple Leafs didn't get another second round pick as a result for that. I mean, they did get one for next year, but to me, the biggest problem and issue is right now is this season. If you want to get a head start on this quote unquote retool, the fact of the matter is you don't have a pick until the third round. You are not picking for 64 possibly longer picks because that third round pick is probably going to be a little bit later or earlier on. So where I'm a little bit confused as in Tree's negotiation kind of thing is I'm okay with the 27 second rounder. I know it's going to be the later of the two picks between Columbus and Winnipeg, if I'm not mistaken. Just going to go back. Yeah, Columbus or Winnipeg, the second round pick is going to be the lowest of the two. So one, what I don't like is it's going to be the lowest of the two picks. Number two, Seattle still has a second round pick this year. You could have easily asked for one of the lower of the two picks next year and Seattle second this season, where it still could have been that equal value for Kiefer Sherwood. You had a second this year and a second next year. So to me, that was you got half of it right. You didn't get the other half. And to me, he kind of panicked, and I think he went for the best deal available, which kind of necessarily isn't always the best thing. But considering he's a UFA, he had no choice. Might as well get something from him. So I'm glad he got two picks. He got a second, but he really desperately needed a second rounder this year, just in case you don't get that first. You need that second round pick because there's a lot of great talent in that draft, especially in any draft where a first round talent could fall and you could be the one to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that wonders how much he panicked, but also that he waited too long, right? Mm-hmm. Like, should McMahon have been moved maybe a week prior, right? Like some of the bigger, better deals you're seeing in
or even
years.
Around when Kiefer Sherwood got dealt.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could have made the comparable right after Sherwood was dealt of what what you could have received for a guy like Bobby McMahon, right? And I think that was part of the problem, was that there was a waiting period where like maybe they were still trying to go for it, right? And they knew deep down that it wasn't. I think everybody close to the team knew deep down that
it could get uglier.
It was gonna get uglier, right? Mm-hmm. And so in saying that, I think that hurt the organization. That hurt Brad Treliving's chances of getting somebody that was or pieces that were more in range with what you should have gotten for a guy like Bobby McMahon. and especially for a guy who said he wanted to be there, I
Hmm.
think that made a difference as well. Um, like you should have really kind of not held out, not held out, but
But stand pat, stand your ground kind of
yeah,
thing.
stand your ground on what you wanted. If you didn't get what you wanted, then maybe it was an off-season move. It wasn't going to change. If you made an off-season move for Bobby McMahon, it wasn't going to change what you got. You were going to get picks regardless. But you're talking about a guy who's got, I mean, granted, 32 points in 60 games this year, 19 of which are goals, right? Um, he's averaged over his career a point every 2 games, so not terrible for what is he, 29 now?
29 going on 30, yeah.
29. So, yeah, I mean, 15 goals in 23, 24, 20 goals in 24, 25. He's going to have 20 goals this season as
Yeah.
well. He's going to be a two-time 20-goal scorer. You should have gotten more for a player like that.
And I think during the day, I can't remember if it was either Chris Johnson or Elliot Friedman, but I think on the broadcast they said that, yeah, they wanted the first round pick, but they were going to get it. So I think they circled back to the second. And I think that's a fair assessment, right? I think maybe you were asking a little bit too much for a first. Would it have been great? Absolutely. But I can understand why you backtracked because of that. But you should have gone and backtracked to what the market value already was.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And that's where the Sherwood deal would have come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, in saying that, they moved on from Bobby McMahon, and there's, I mean, he hasn't signed an extension yet. There's
Yeah.
obviously conversation that maybe at some point he might
Could
sign
come back.
with Toronto, but we kind of suggest that every time a pending free agent leaves the Leafs, that maybe there's that
There's hope.
conversation in the off season. And again, I'm conflicted with that one. One though that I wasn't so conflicted with, and frankly a little disappointed, was the one that came in after the deadline, after the 3 o'clock deadline, came over the wire. Elliot Friedman noted that there was moves still coming in, and Scott Lawton, Oakville
Yeah.
native, Toronto area boy, Leaf fan, while growing up, moved to the LA Kings, and in 3 games since the move, 2 goals,
Yep.
1 assist, playing extremely well,
Moving up
averaging
in the lineup.
moving up in the lineup, averaging 12 to 15 minutes a game, and being used correctly. And again, this goes back to Berube and the misuse of especially Scott Lawton. I said it 2 episodes ago to you. This guy should have been given top 6 minutes at some point while the Leafs were struggling.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you we would have seen a different Scott Lawton. I guarantee you that had they decided to trade him at the deadline still, that they would have gotten more assets in return. And I guarantee you that it would have made Brad Treliving second guess his idea to trade Scott Lawton.
Mm-hmm.
Especially knowing that, you probably could have kept the pending free agent at a relatively low cost. Yet they moved on from him. They traded him to LA, and Scott Lawton has excelled since going to the LA Kings. I want to get your thoughts on Scott Lawton, the move, and why the Maple Leafs maybe didn't give him that kind of opportunity.
I can understand why they didn't give him the opportunity last year, because they felt like they were already crowded. They already had their lineup set in place, and you needed more stability on that fourth line. This year, with a lot of changes and an overturn, you kind of needed someone to take a step, and I think Lawton was definitely that candidate to take that step forward. And right now, he's in a third-line role with the Kings, and he's thriving right now. As you mentioned, the stats and the production already. He's playing really well in elevated minutes. And this is where Lawton is. He's a middle six kind of guy, second-line, third-line center, with the ability to move up if there's an injury, but more or less third-line center, energy, great speed, physicality, can do it all. The fact that, again, I think this is the worst move out of the two. I think it went progressively better, okay, absolute worst one. This one really kind of pissed me off. It really did, considering what Corey Perry went for. Again, 40-year-old winger. I believe it was a second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Yeah, LA King gave a second round pick for Corey Perry, so Tampa Bay gave that up. Nick Dowd earlier in the deadline or the day before went for a second, a third, and a goaltending prospect. You're telling me that Scott Laughton is only worth a conditional third round pick that could move up into a second as opposed to a bona fide second? Now, I'm not saying the Maple Leafs are going to get the value that they gave up last year, but you could have at least gotten that second and third like you did for Dowd. You at least could have gotten a guaranteed second like you did for Corey Perry. The fact that there's a condition on there kind of, again, like, why does there need to be a condition on that when you know for sure that this is his value and you know what you're expecting of him? Guy that's great in the middle of the dot. He brings that energy, and he's that kind of guy that could push you forward into a playoff spot, which is what the Kings are basically in right now. So to me, having that condition on there doesn't make sense, or something I wouldn't agree to it when, again, going back to Bobby McMahon, you don't have a pick in the first 2 rounds. Get that guarantee for that second, because if they don't make it, then that's still going to be a third. It's okay, but it's not a second. So that's to me where, again, the whole negotiating process for Tree is what was his thought process for that? Why agree to the condition when you could have just said, no, I want that second. It's got to be a second. You saw what Dowd went for. You saw what Corey Perry went for. Why isn't my guy worth a full bona fide, no condition second round pick?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that whole idea of panicking right at the deadline. Yeah. Like, you're looking to make moves and you're looking to just change something in that room. The part that kind of ticked me off was, I mean, for one, the guy's got 4 shots since going over to the LA Kings. He's got 2 goals, right? Yeah. So, I mean, obviously that's not going to stay, but, you know, what he's added to that lineup already is impressive. Mm-hmm. But this season, he was maybe one of the more outspoken players in that room. And he didn't give you he didn't give you the bullshit cliches like, you know, yeah, it's tough to be in in these situations, but we're giving it 100%. He didn't give you that. He said, it's, this is embarrassing. We need to work harder. This is not what we didn't want from our team. Yeah, and that was the part to me that was like, this guy needs to be here. That's leadership. That's somebody.
That's the passion.
That's the passion. That's somebody that's in the room and understanding and not letting you wonder if you were a fly on the wall, what would the conversations be? This is the kind of conversation that you need to bring up. This is the kind of conversation that you want to have from your players. This is the kind of leadership that even outside the room, you're not calling out specific players. You're not calling out anyone in particular. You're calling out the team. Like, this is something that we need to see change in this market, especially this market when, media members in Toronto are going to take everything you say out of context unless you put it, like, dumb it down for everybody. Like, be specific. Hey.
Or you actually say, this isn't what I said. Here is what I meant.
Yeah. Hey, this team played like shit, right? Like, we need to be better. These are the plays that maybe, we missed on. Hey, we threw pizza up the middle with 5 minutes left in the third period, caused us to go to overtime, and we are not good in overtime this season.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the things that you need to hear from these guys. And Scott Laughton brought that, and that, to me, was the most disappointing of the whole thing.
No, absolutely. And again, you also talk about, like, him being vocal, but how about a mentor to Ethan Cowan? For a young rookie coming in who's already getting, like, the short end of the stick because of Craig Berube's coaching decisions, because you got to send a message to the rookie as opposed to some of the other, like, veterans on there. Cowan spoke highly of Laughton. We talk about character. He's that character guy, whether it's the vocal presence or trying to get a rookie more comfortable or acclimated with the adjustment to the pro level. Cowan spoke highly of him. So to me, again, if you didn't need to keep him, I understand that. And I still understand you want to get assets for him, but why do that to the kid as well when he was already getting shafted for ice time? Although when he's getting those minutes right now, he did look great against Montreal. I thought him and Ben Boulgrew were absolutely fantastic in that game compared to other players. But I think that's more of like a confidence boost for him that he's got the support of a veteran. And now that you trade him away, what's that going to do for him?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think like the that's what kind of stuck with me too is that Easton Cowan came out and said like, this is a guy that I love having here. He's been great to me. He's brought me in. He's taken me under his wing. He's taught me like what it is to be a pro. Um, and that's hard knowing, especially the season that Easton Cowan's had in and out of the lineup, inconsistency, the Nick Robertson treatment. That's been tough to see. Is that there's a guy that I think just wanted to have that kind of leadership and that guidance, and you're like, okay, see you later. Like thanks for nothing essentially. And
Yeah.
in saying that too, you traded a first round pick for Scott Lawton.
Yeah.
You traded a first round pick for Scott Lawton. I believe Grabenkin was part of that move as well, Nikita
Was.
Grabenkin. And you got back a conditional second round pick. So I don't know. I don't know. Like I think the asset management there is just it's not great. It's not great, right?
Not looking great at all. So
No. We will get into the future of the Leafs, at least this season, anyways, in a couple seconds here. But before we do, excuse me, I want to talk to you real quick about the Buffalo Sabres.
yeah.
Atop the Atlantic Division, 2 insane games this week.
Yeah.
That
I know where you're going with this.
man. Everybody on the ice was involved in the physicality. Every player on the ice was engaged. Rasmus Dahlin, who's not known to be a fighter, maybe dirty at times, but not known to be a fighter, dropping the mitts and getting involved. Malestein just absolutely tuning some players.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Sabres, to me, might be the most impressive team this season.
Impressive storyline all around.
In a very impressive storyline. We're talking about a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 15, 16 years? I believe 15 years.
14, this is the 15th season should they have missed.
All of a sudden, you've got a team that's willing to put everything on the line. They're playing meaningful hockey, and they look like they're playing meaningful hockey more than the Leafs have in the last decade.
Yeah.
Now, Colton Parayko obviously didn't waive his no-trade clause to go there, which is fine. That's his right. He's earned that right. But you'd think right now that any player would have loved to go be a part of this team. And you know what it reminds me of? Right now, it reminds me of the way the Jays were this past season, where everyone was involved, everyone was included, everyone bought in. Ernie Clement went from nobody to all of a sudden being like a hero. Nathan Lukes, like he was a key piece. Addison Barger was a key piece.
Yeah.
Very much so with the Buffalo Sabres, right? Josh Doan is having an unreal season out of nowhere, right? Jack Quinn is having a very underrated season. Very underrated season for $3 million, okay?
Yeah.
$3 million AV. UPL is having a great season in net. Like, so much so.
Alex Lyon, once again, carrying them just like he did for the Panthers.
Alex Lyon, so much so that duo has Devin Levi buried in the minors right now.
Yeah.
So, and then, like, talk about what Rasmus Dahlin's gone through in this past offseason. All of a sudden, he's a guy that's been alive and playing well, and what him and his wife have gone through, and he's still been able to come to the rink every day and put together one hell of a season, right? Obviously Tage Thompson having the year that he's having. Alex Tuck. It's crazy
Jason
because
Zucker, underrated season as well.
Jason Zucker's another guy, but it's crazy because they lost JJ Peterka in the offseason, and they have not skipped a beat. In fact, they've looked so much better that I think this team needed to move on from a guy like JJ Peterka and add some of those low end pieces that were going to make a difference.
I would counter that and say I would have so much because here's the thing. When they traded JJ Peterka, I was questioning like, what the hell are they doing kind of thing, because that's the kind of guy that you want to push forward as a top 6 forward.
$7 million AAV though too.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, he's looking good with the Utah Mammoth, but yeah, I don't understand how that move. I mean, that move really impacted them in the first month or so, because we were already talking about like another potential downfall of the Sabres. To me, it's the firing of Kevin Adams.
Yeah.
Ever since he left, the whole entire team has found another gear. And it begs the question that if you're going through, okay, I don't think maybe Lindy Ruff is still at the level of being a coach for this kind of game.
Yeah.
But then again, sometimes the coach is always the first axe to fall for a bad season. They got rid of the GM. And that begs the question, maybe it's not just the coach. Maybe it's the guy that builds the team. But I think the players took onus on that, saying that, you know what? The guy that has built this team for years hasn't done anything. We're going to take it upon ourselves, and they find that next gear. That 8-7 game against the Tampa Bay Lightning shows that they are definitely for real. And the way that they didn't back down, they battled hard. Tampa Bay was being a thorn in their sides, and they were going to match that intensity and physicality and the fighting level of that. Shows that they're not going to be taken lightly. And this is why I wrote that little piece recently about Berube's comments. This is the mentality that teams need to have. Where is this mentality for the Maple Leafs, not just this season, but for every single season beforehand? There's no fight. There's no incentive for them to play to win. Meanwhile, the Sabres, who have missed the playoffs for 14 years, have that incentive to be at their best. You would think that making the playoffs 9 seasons in a row is great, but only 2 wins isn't any incentive to actually put forth an effort and drop the gloves when you need to send a message to say, hey, enough of this shit. That to me is the biggest thing that differentiates the Sabres and the Maple Leafs right now, the desire to win. And we keep saying that, yeah, all players want to win, but teams wanted that extra mile. They want to go the extra mile. They want it more. We're seeing that with everybody else. Why can't the Maple Leafs, even though that, yeah, the season's probably lost, why aren't they at least putting up a fight to show the fans that next year, this is going to be the mentality and mindset of the team going forward? But right now, I have no bad things to say about the Buffalo Sabres, because for so many years, they've been the joke, right?
But what a storyline though too, right? Like like you said, they've missed the playoffs for so long. Everyone's bought in, and I mean
that's the difference.
You don't just move on from Peterka. You moved on from Victor Olofsson as well, who was like your power play specialist.
Yeah.
I was there last week to see a game. That atmosphere is on fire. Okay, yeah. That lower bowl, incredible. Everyone's bought in, right? The organization, everyone's playing full tilt. The fans have bought in. These players, like Lindy Ruff or not, these players could almost coach themselves to a playoff berth. Like that's where they're at, right? Everyone's bought in. The crazy part about it is that outside Tage Thompson, who has 70 points, Rasmus Dahlin has 60 points in 61 games. Nobody else is a point a game on that team. Alex Tuch, 57, then it drops off to Ryan McLeod. Ryan McLeod's having a year, 48 points in 65 games.
Mattias Samuelsson, too. Remember how we joked about that contract?
Man, we mocked that kid.
Yeah.
36 points in 63 games, plus 31. Ryan McLeod's a plus 29. Now, whether you believe in plus minus or not, those are pretty telling numbers.
For the Buffalo Sabres, I think you could probably take that as a basic win. Yeah, I understand plus minus can be flawed, but for a team every single year where they're always like in the minus, getting a plus, I think that's a good incentive.
If you're plus 31, it means something, right? Like let's not mince it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like there are things that the Leafs need to learn from the Buffalo Sabres, and I never thought I would be saying that.
Yeah. No,
But
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that they need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, which team are we going to be? Because everybody else in the Atlantic is starting to pull away from them. And if they can't find it, then it's going to be more years of pain.
yeah, no, 100%. 100% it would. Um, so in saying that, obviously they didn't get Colton Parayko. There's a part of me that wonders, like, maybe at some point he would love to go there, but looking back, but I get it.
Yeah.
He's earned that right. Building a family in St. Louis, he has every right to turn that down.
Yeah.
Now they did go out and they got Logan Stanley and Luke
And
Shen,
Shen.
right?
I think they got
So
they got both Stanley and Shen, yeah.
look at that look at that defense core now. I don't think there's anybody under 6'3".
I'm not under 6'3", but you got that balance of mobility and physicality.
Playoff ready.
That is playoff ready.
And
yeah.
if there was a season to be decent in the Eastern Conference, this is the season. Like Buffalo could be a tough take in 7 games, especially in that barn.
Not writing them off.
No, not at all. Okay, in saying that, we got one last thing to get to with the Maple Leafs, and obviously the idea is the Leafs own a top 5 protected pick in the first round of this year's NHL draft, which would mean right now sitting in, I believe they are 25th?
25th, but they're 7th in the draft lottery standings with a 500 points percentage.
So, with that in mind, obviously players don't want to tank. I don't think at this point the Leafs need to try and tank because they're doing a hell of a job as it is.
Yeah.
But the Leafs have a small percentage of a chance at climbing into that top 3, that top 5 even. We're talking Chase Reed potentially at 4 or 5. If you're the Leafs, are you heading into Tank City here? Like, are you looking to maintain that first round pick, knowing that now you have a conditional pick next year, and that it would fall, your pick would fall to Boston in 2028 or 2027?
I mean, I think you got to try to regardless. I think this draft is very, very deep, especially within that top 5. And you could find a player ready to make that jump within a year or so, as opposed to 3 to 5 years. I mean, when you're talking about a Gavin McKenna, a Stenberg, Verhoff, Reed, let's even talk about like Albert Smits, who looked good at the Olympics, Caleb Malhotra, Tynan Lawrence, a lot of great upside players that have looked good in their respective leagues, whether production is hit or miss sometimes. Those are going to be difference makers for you in the near future and in the immediate future. And the fact that the Winnipeg Jets are 3 points behind the Maple Leafs, or there's let me try this again. There's a 5-point spread between the New York Rangers, who are 4th overall in the standings in the draft lottery, and the Maple Leafs, who are 7th. Both the Rangers and St. Louis are 5 points back. The Winnipeg Jets are 3 back of the Maple Leafs to move up past them. Toronto has a 6.5% chance, and given the way that their schedule is right now, and there's a draft tanker or a tank tracker on cap wages, and it shows the percentage of remaining games for the schedule for any NHL team. And you go to the Maple Leafs, there's a hell of a lot of red. A little bit of yellow here and there with a game where it could go either way, but a lot of red. There's only one green and only 2 games where they actually have a chance to win above 50%. Do you want to take a guess on which those 2 games are?
Share it with the listeners.
The New York Rangers, which is we thought that last week, and they got blown out in that third period at 57%. The other one is against the Florida Panthers, April 11th, 52%. Everything else is in the red. It's in the yellow. It's less than a 45% chance in a lot of those other games. So the fact that you have a probability of only winning 2 games for the rest of the season, 2 other teams or 3 other teams behind you separate you by 5 points, and they've actually won a few games. Rangers have won 2. St. Louis won 3 before an overtime loss before then. Winnipeg has been hot, cold, whatever you want to call it. The top 5 is within your grasp. I think you do everything you can to salvage that pick so that way you don't leave the season empty-handed. And it would be a big mistake because, like I said before, you don't pick until that third round possibly. You could get to the second if that LA King becomes a second one. But you get a first year, you get a second, you get that third. Those are 3 picks in the top 96 right there. That at least is something to build off of. And if you, I get you, players don't want to tank for the sake of tanking. But again, sometimes when you have efforts that you see from the Leafs like they do against the Tampa Bay Lightning, then what are you playing for? Mm-hmm. At least have some pride when you play, even if you lose, or at least put forth the effort when you lose. They could lose every game of the season by 1 goal, and I really wouldn't be upset if they actually put forth the effort and they're not getting outshot 2-1 by the end of the night. So to me, you got to do what's right. And I'm not saying, like, again, they don't really need to tank because they've just been poor all season. But you're already there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of come to accept what's going to happen this season. And, you know, it took me a long time to do that in the Austin Matthews draft year. And it took getting first overall to really, you know, turn the tide back for me. This season, I've kind of come to acceptance, like right after the Olympic break, right? Like for us Canadians, there's that disappointment of the gold medal game. And then right after the Leafs lose 2 in a row, back to back. And you're like, okay, this is it. Like this is a year of ultimate disappointment. And there was an acceptance shortly after that the Leafs aren't making the playoffs.
Yeah.
The trade deadline was coming up. Names were already being floated around. Like many names were being floated around. Some, like I said, that I didn't want to see go. And that acceptance kind of like allowed me to believe that, you know, the Leafs could potentially hold on to their first round pick this year. And I didn't believe that at the beginning of the season. I was upset that, you know, we talked about how many times that the Leafs don't have a first round pick this year. Mm-hmm. And that's because I never truly believed that the Leafs would get it back from Boston. And now I'm sitting here, you know, with 19 games to go, 18 games to go in the season, 17 for the Leafs. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned to accept. You know the what is it? The 7 stages of grief.
Grief. Yeah. You're in acceptance.
I think I'm in acceptance. I think I'm there. I think I'm okay still putting on a Leafs ball cap and walking around this summer and knowing that, hey, it's going to be all right.
Yeah, it's going to be all right.
So, I mean, like, I think that's where people need to get to. The criticisms need to stop, right?
Yeah.
The fact is, you're not going to the playoffs. You need to hope for that first round pick, and like we regroup and we reboot for next season, right? Mm-hmm. Like we've done it since 1967.
Yeah,
we are constantly reminded of that. So what makes this year any different?
And again, you have a 6.5% chance right now. You could get close to 10 if you keep falling and everybody else keeps winning.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe it's time to look at if Matthews has been really dealing with an injury all season, maybe it's time to sit him out.
Yeah.
If Matthew Nyes is dealing with a leg injury, like it was suggested,
sit him out.
Maybe it's time to sit him out, right? Jake McCabe has been an absolute warrior for you for 2 full seasons. Sit him out.
Yeah.
You know, Anthony Stolarz, injury after injury this year. Sit him out, right?
Call up Dennis Hildeby again because, to be honest, next year you can't send him back down. No, you got to make a decision.
Absolutely. Give people the taste. Give people the option. You know, Luke Hames, like let's get him up. Yeah. Let's see what he's made of. Easton Cowan, put him on the top line. Give him the minutes. See what happens.
Looked good last night in Montreal.
You're not going to ruin his development now, right?
Yeah.
Give him the ice time. Let him go out there and play, right? that's where we're at as Leafs Nation. So I think people need to kind of get in line and just accept it and get away from the anger, get away from the overall grief. It's time to just it's time to accept what we don't have control over.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. So Tankathon, absolutely. Tank City, let's go.
Yeah.
It's time to accept what we have no control over and just see what we can do come June in June in the draft and July with free agency and go from there. But anyways, I've got nothing else. It's gonna be kind of the tail end of the season. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of the Leafs over the next few weeks here. But you got anything else for us before we close it out?
Just going to do a little, I mean, with all the draft talk happening right now in tank mode, a little not shameless plug, but check out the Hockey Writers draft guide and content that's going to be kicking off tomorrow. So draft season is well underway over at THW. Be sure to check out a lot of the profiles, rankings. Features will be coming at a later date, but we already have a lot of player content and player-driven articles already, the most that I've seen in some time. So we got a lot of draft content already at THW. Check out the profiles as they kick off tomorrow.
Beautiful. All right. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in this week for 2 episodes, 228 with Emma Malte of Team Canada and the Toronto Scepters, as well as episode 229 today with myself and Peter. As always, it's a pleasure to do it for the Hockey Podcast Network with the Hockey Podcast Network. It's a pleasure to do it for DraftKings as well. You can get promo codes in the show description below for SeatGeek, $20 off your first purchase of tickets. As the Toronto Blue Jays season nears us, check out SeatGeek, use our code, as well as 20% off your order over at BioSteel. That's all we got here for episode 229 and the Toronto Maple Leafs as they close out their abysmal season. We'll leave you with that. That's it for Peter and myself. And we'll leave you with our good friend Alex Hobson and his hit, 25.
I'm looking